Hey everyone, and welcome to the DM Disruption. Has been a little bit, we took a little hiatus for a little bit of time, primarily because of tax season. And so we're back. We are back with the DM Disruption. And who better to bring on than Eric from Corpay One, who everyone loves and everyone knows. Eric has been around for a little bit. And so Eric, thanks so much for joining me today. Excited to have you.
Yeah, no, thank you, Dawn. Thanks for having me. Always great to connect with you and talk about the industry here. So I'm excited.
Yeah, and for me, one of the biggest topics, of course, and I'm, certified fraud examiner as well as a CPA, is all around fraud protection. And
Mhm.
certainly as we're talking through the conversation of relationship pricing, otherwise known as subscription pricing per Ron Baker, we're realizing and having conversations with clients that we've never really had before. I know, we understand, you and I understand that cash is king and we need to protect our cash
Yep.
more than anything, right? You hear stories every day.
Yeah, so many from different clients, both on the accounting side and their clients. So it's definitely a big topic.
Yeah. And so, I learned this back. I was in a partnership many years ago. And the one thing one of the partners taught me and has always stuck with me for forever is without money, you're not in business. If you don't have cash, you're not going to be in business very long.
At least not.
Running off of debt, not a really good idea. So understanding that we've got to help our clients protect their cash is super important.
Yep.
And a lot of times, Eric, and I don't know if you're seeing this, but we see small business owners making decisions all the time without consulting anyone, because the primary reason I believe is not because obviously not that they don't care, because they do care. It's their business, which I call businesses are a baby.
Mhm.
That's your baby. You hold that baby, you feed that baby, you clean that baby. That's your business, right? So when we think about cash being king, a lot of times the problem really is they're out of time. They're
Mhm.
running you want to talk about hair on fire.
Mhm.
I know, Eric, we've worked through some clients where I'm like, they aren't going to sign the paperwork, not meaning that they don't want to. They don't want to go through the phone call to verify their information. And we have to explain to them, this is important. This is protecting your identity. This is protecting your business. It's a process. They don't like doing it. So a lot of times they'll take any avenue they can to avoid to have to do any of that type of work. And you must see that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I find that business owners, they like to focus on what they do best, which is usually running their business, right?
Yeah.
It's the passion, it's what they love. And yeah, it sometimes is, like you said, a bit I think stressful and a little bit, a little friction there for them to sort of go through these hoops, if you will, to get things done when they can kind of see ways around it, if you will, or
Right.
more so they don't necessarily see the importance or the value of it, at least up front, because they think some of these things are possible but not likely, right? And they
Right.
think they can get around with it. So yeah, I definitely understand where you're coming from.
Yeah. And there's a super high trust factor
Mm.
where they're believing. And here's the thing, I historically I've said, those in-house bookkeepers where we find those challenges, but at the end of the day, it's not necessarily those people. We find with clients who maybe we handle their bookkeeping, but they're out with either employees or subcontractors and giving their credit cards to them.
I've seen giving debit cards.
Oh, yes, debit cards too.
Yep, I've seen it. I've seen it all.
I mean, that's your cash. You can't see, and that's why I always teach my kids that.
Mhm.
Use your credit card, because if you need to dispute a charge or anything like that, it's that process is less invasive when someone gets your debit card. Now your cash is gone. Your cash is gone. Now we know banks refund. We get all of that, but that's a whole nother. You want to talk about a nightmare, having to go through all of that. So you're right. The debit cards are so true, and you're just like, you did what?
Yeah.
I don't think that that's probably the best idea. And so we talk about the fraud triangle. And I don't think people really think about how important the fraud triangle is, because there's three sides to a triangle, and
Mhm.
without one side, the triangle falls. It can't stand up. If one side's gone, the other two are going to collapse.
Mhm. So,
And what's interesting about the fraud triangle is that the three sides, and I always teach people the acronym PRO because it's easy. I can remember PRO. If I can remember PRO, I can remember all three sides of that triangle. And the first one with a P is pressure. And, you know, every day I think there's more and more pressure. I don't think pressure typically goes the other way. Pressure typically goes forward, and we're consistently having this pressure. And that may be an employee, and it may be a subcontractor, right? It could be a vendor. It even could be a vendor who's under whatever pressure it may be to sell so much material. You know, employee, you know, they're just watching the money coming in. Usually people who are in tune with either sales or even accounts payable, who's like, wow, look at this particular bill that came in and they just spent all this money on maybe advertising in some capacity, whatever it may be. Wow, these guys have plenty of money. They won't miss $2,000-$3,000 or $200 here and $200 there. And because they're under pressure at home.
Yep.
So the P is is one that we can't control that, Eric.
Mm-hmm.
Corpay cannot control the pressure that people have when it comes to the money. Mm-hmm. The other thing Corpay One cannot control is rationalization. We don't have the ability to stick something inside the coconut of our employees, our vendors, our whoever it may be, subcontractors, being able to rationalize why they should be stealing. Mm-hmm. It's wild. Yeah. And so with the PR part of it, we can't control that part of the triangle. The only part we can control is opportunity. And that's what the O is for.
Yeah.
How do we minimize the opportunity someone may have to embezzle money? Period. It's one of the biggest statistics in the Certified Fraud Examiner report, the report to the nations, it's called, through the Association of Certified Fraud Examiners. And embezzlement and cash and all of that is usually always at the top.
Yep.
Right. So knowing that fraud triangle and minimizing the risk of opportunity, I'm going to let you, Eric, give me an example. Just think of one client conversation where you were talking to maybe an accountant or maybe just a business owner and onboarding them onto Corpay One and them explaining to you like what their challenges were and why they were even adopting Corpay One. Do you have an example for me? I've got a bunch of them. Do you want me to go first?
Yeah, you can start off and then
I'll go first.
Yeah.
I always like to go first. I just don't want to monopolize the conversation, Eric.
No. We can.
You know what? You know what I mean, my guy. So this is a great example of a fraud. It's not even a fraud. It's a I think it might happen fraud. And this happened actually last week. We had an email. Also, use Lisio for a conversation. So we're messaging through Lisio, and he says, "Hey, how's the best way for me to track the expenses that my subcontractors are incurring on my American Express card?" And I said, "Explain more." Well, I just give them my name, my address, and my card number and the expiration date, and they just make purchases. Wow. And I said, am I reading this correctly? I said, absolutely. Nicole and I got on the phone and we're like, whoa, I can't even, like, this makes no sense to me. And this guy's running hundreds of thousands of dollars through his bank account. Mm-hmm. Now, obviously the Amex is not connected to the bank account, but I know this guy and he is not looking at his statements. Mm-hmm. So the first thing I said to him was, okay, we have a problem and we need to talk on Monday. And he said, okay. I said, where are the receipts from these people for the purchases they've made on their card? Well, I just have the charge that's on the card. I go, no. How do you know that's for your business, bro?
No way.
And we're going to talk this afternoon and I'm going to be like, you need to get on Corpay One because somebody needs to watch the cookie jar. I know you're not going to watch the cookie jar. Like most clients are not watching the cookie jar. Now, what they don't understand is sometimes it's the people making the cookies that are stealing the cookies.
Yep.
And it's mind blowing.
It's a great point you make. My story is actually even a little bit before my time in the accounting industry. I work with sort of in the financial lending space.
Okay.
And with that, I used to work directly with business owners themselves, and I worked with a top sort of new restaurant based in New York, who seemingly was looking to get a pretty large loan. I think it was about 500K at
Wow.
the time. And obviously, with that amount, you know, with us being a lending institution, we go through all the checks and balances, right? We need financials and identifications, tax returns, all the good stuff. And the deal is moving along. Like, we're getting all the paperwork in, we're getting everything in, and the final step is sort of the compliance or risk review process, right? Part of that entails a call to the owner himself to verify everything, et cetera. And long story short, through that risk and compliance process, as we had this 500K loan at the finish line, we get in contact with the actual business owner, and he has no idea about this business loan at all. Like,
Oh my
he's
goodness.
completely confused. He doesn't have no idea. He's obviously upset with us. And we're trying to understand what happened, because all the paperwork we have is legit. It's everything is the business's paperwork, right? It's not fraudulent. And come to find out, his basically his best friend, who helped him open the restaurant, who obviously he trusted, had access to everything, right? In the office, he had access to all the paperwork, all the financials, his ID, et cetera. And he basically went through the loan process as if he was the owner.
Wow.
And to your point around the fraud triangle, I originally speak with the guy, we get the loan canceled, and we're trying to understand sort of what happened and why. And he's pretty upset. He's actually like crying, and he's basically saying how his best friend told him, yeah, he had all this pressure at home. He had to pay like some medical bills or something like that. And he figured, hey, this big restaurant, they're not going to miss this couple $100,000. I'll pay it back at some point if he realizes, like, and yeah, crazy story though, crazy.
It's the craziest thing. And the cash is king conversation is so important. You know, I had a case, this was a while ago, it was probably 8 years ago, where a son was stealing from his dad. He was stealing the payments for they were a electrical company, and the son was stealing payments from the dad.
Mm,
Now, there was a wife involved. So we don't know if it was pressure from the wife and all this, and we're trying to do all these things. And he was, receiving payments because they had the same name. Not surprising, right? So, but that's one of the biggest problems and the biggest challenges we have as trusted advisors to our clients is it's like, it's easy to say to a 1-year old, don't put your hand on the hot stove. Don't put your hand on the hot stove. And you say it over and over again. The kid puts the hand on the hot stove, and that's when they learn.
yep.
Unfortunately, that's so similar to what is true around small business owners. We can only advocate for them as much as possible. We can
Yep.
only suggest, and I mean, I'm pretty forceful, as you can imagine, Eric. I'm pretty forceful with, like, when I have this conversation this afternoon, it's non-negotiable.
Mhm.
It will start the process. We will get each of the different subcontractors, which that in and of itself is mind blowing. I understand employees, that's the normal conversation, but now you're telling me you you're going to give your credit card information to people who aren't even employees. You have no control over these people.
Yep.
And that's just terrible. And unfortunately, because of pressure and rationalization, people end up doing things they never imagined they would do. And
Yep.
that's the thing. You look at somebody who has embezzled, the majority of the time, it's the first time they've ever done anything illegal besides
Yep.
speeding. Because I think everybody speeds, let's be honest.
Included.
I'm totally a speeder. And if you're not a speeder and I'm behind you, I'm not happy with you because I want you to speed. But, from a real criminal type of situation, most people are first time offenders when they embezzle.
Mhm.
And it's not because they want to like ruin the life of someone else. It has nothing to do. That's the interesting, the psychology behind it. It's not because, like, Eric, I work for you and I just hate Eric so much, I'm going to steal from him. It at 99.9% of the time has nothing to do with the person they're stealing from.
No, it's I think you hit it on the head before. It's the opportunity, right? It's the opportunity and the rationalization of, hey, basically I need this more than the company does, right? Like, this is going to serve me better than it'll hurt them.
Right.
It's the rationalization of it. And like you said, it's a weird thing because obviously you're hurting the business, but that's sort of the mindset that allows them to say, hey, when I combine the opportunity and the unlikelihood that I'll get caught
Right.
compared with the fact that the business is going to keep going regardless, hey, this isn't that bad.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. They look at how much money they bring in every month. They'll be able to satisfy that debt, no problem. And again, it's the psychology behind it. That's the most interesting part. I love to watch crime shows. I like to understand the mind of the criminal. And
Mm,
it's funny because I always say to people, I have to know how to, I have to steal myself or learn how to steal myself in order to be a good fraud examiner.
mm.
Really, it's just getting behind the psychiatry of the thought process. And I don't think anyone's story is any more mind blowing than another because really at the end of the day, stealing is stealing, whether it's 20 bucks or 200,000,
Yeah.
it's still stealing. Now, and that's about, go ahead. You're going to say, I think you're going to say something.
I was just going to say, yeah, going back to the opportunity aspect, I think the other, the when you go to rationalize, right, you consider, hey, how likely is it that they'll see this? How likely is it that they're going to catch this transaction? How likely is it that this is actually going to come back to me, right? And that's where having systems like Corpay One, QuickBooks Online, getting that full visibility into these transactions in real time, and even with like our MasterCard and having controls and visibility on that side, it gives you sort of that ability, I believe, as well.
Yeah, and definitely. And people I watch on Facebook, I'm in a lot of Facebook groups. I love how people are willing to collaborate and help each other and recommend. And at the end of the day, when you're evaluating any technology, you've got to consider what are the safety nets, what are the security parameters, are there two-factor authentication? You should always enable that. I know it's a pain in the neck, nobody wants to do it. I'm getting another code, it's like, yeah, because that's like another step in the process of security.
Yep.
Which I had a conversation about that, especially specific to Swissnet, talking about their security protocols when it comes to, say, end devices, for instance. People don't think about protecting their phones or think about protecting their actual computers themselves, the actual device they're working on. And so, as we said before, cash is king. How are you not making it a priority to protect that cash?
Yep.
Right. And so the fact that you have an approval process, which is super important, there's an approval process to say who's going to be in charge of approving X, Y, and Z. There's actually you guys have a lot of fraud protection built within the system and the way you can enable and disable depending upon, I guess I would call it, the security levels that you have to have depending on which people are involved. You don't want your accounts payable clerk allowed to approve bills.
Exactly.
Accounts payable clerks get that, and I know that term is kind of old fashioned, but the person getting the bill into the system, which by the way is also automated, because a lot of bills are emailed. They're either emailed or even if they're mailed, they can be scanned and uploaded or whatever the case may be to minimize that risk. Then there's that natural read of the invoice, which is also, I like that part because, the OCR recognition, because it does a lot of the work for you. Yep. and protects you from like the new vendors. If it's a new vendor, there's got to be approval processes. If we don't recognize this vendor, because a lot of times what they do when they're stealing is they'll put Powerful Accounting LLC, then they'll go add Powerful Accounting just in and of itself, or
different payment information. Yeah.
different payment information. And that's why the system is so important. I mean, integration's great. I love how Corpay One just chucks the information into QBO. I don't ever think about it. Creates the bill for me, issues the payment, applies the payment against the bill. It's funny, Eric, because 10 years ago, we weren't talking like this.
Yeah.
We weren't realizing that the technology is taking care of that accounting side of it. But so the visibility used to be in the accounting software, Eric. Yep. That's where we would go to look for things that were strange and, what is this vendor and how are they paying for this? But now really the visibility is in Corpay One. That's where we go to see the invoice. That's where we go to approve the invoice. Where if you're just living out of an accounting system, you don't have any control over how things are being paid and who's paying
By
it,
the
right?
time you've seen it, it's said and done with, right? It's already done. So yeah, having those having that initial visibility, but having the ability to control exactly, who approves it, when they approve it, and being able to set different scenarios, I think is a big thing for us as well, where, all bills just don't have to go to one person, right? If it's a bill over $10,000, it can go to your executive as well, or your
Right.
president. So there's a lot of different scenarios that we can sort of customize, for those approval processes to give that proper control and visibility.
And you can do that by vendor,
Yeah, I mean,
which is
honestly,
beautiful. Like Delta Airlines.
yeah,
I
we
want to
can do it.
know if Nicole is taking a flight I don't know about.
Yeah, no, we can do it really based off of any document detail that we read. I mean, we can literally trigger workflows based off of a keyword. Like we can search the entire document for a specific account number, for example, or a keyword. But yeah, more common things are like dollar amounts, certain vendors you want to treat differently. Maybe you want to treat certain users differently, right? So maybe if a new employee uploads a document that has a more strenuous approval process than someone who's a manager, right?
Right.
Those are all different things that you can set up and customize.
Well, and again, the beauty of the transparency is like when my guy Justin gets on Corpay One, knowing he has subcontractors who will be utilizing the Corpay One cards,
Yep.
we can watch that.
Yep.
Because like I said, it's not something he's gonna do, but it's almost like, we're the background for him and we can just pop up every day or whatever, even just have it open. And as things are happening, we have that visibility. And
Yep.
I think that is something that we as that trusted advisor, when you talk about relationship pricing, which again, we've talked about, what are the things you can do for your clients? Here's one of them. One of the
No,
things you can do is help set up and maintain accounts payable processes, credit
I
card
love,
usage.
I love to give the example of insurance, right? It's a common thing. Like we all pay for insurance, car insurance, for example, every month. It's not to say that we expect to get into a car accident every month or even every year,
Right.
but we pay for that peace of mind, right? And I think it's a similar service that you and your colleagues offer to clients is the peace of mind, right? To know
Absolutely.
it's not that fraud is definitely going to happen, but in the event that something does happen or there's a possibility, you have a partner with you who's going to help you kind of figure all this out and minimize whatever damage there is. So I like to sort of give that example a lot of times for some people to relate to.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think, at the end of the day, as we're considering like thinking about that relationship pricing and subscription pricing, that we can say to our clients, hey, this is a service. And that's the thing, SaaS for a service. This is a great example of how you can take technology tools and utilize them as tools in your toolkit to be able to provide these services. If you're not providing these types of services and you have companies who have employees with credit cards, or this is the traditional, let me open my drawer, I got my boss's credit card right here, let me make this payment,
Yep.
because I don't want my boss to know we didn't pay this bill. So that's my responsibility to go in and do this stuff. And it's like, okay, but we need to see full transparency. And that's where I get very concerned. And certainly as a certified fraud examiner, it's more top of mind to me. But the whole conversation, this whole point of doing a podcast about these types of topics is to educate and have people think differently than the way they've thought all along. And
Yep.
now more than ever, Eric, people people are hacking. They want, never mind cybersecurity. Just these are internal folks we got to
Yeah.
watch.
Yeah, no, it's rough, and obviously, overall as an economy, we're not necessarily in the best place, so it's even more likely than ever. Like you said, going back to the pressure point, right? There's more and more people who are under that pressure for different reasons, and yeah, looking for these opportunities to sort of alleviate some of that. So
Yeah. So definitely. So as we wrap up this, this episode has been great. Anytime I can talk about fraud, it's my jam. Just because I'm so like, I see the live cases of people and the phone call from the elderly folks in New Hampshire who had a bookkeeper for 30 years who stole a lot of money from them. They never knew it.
mhm.
And then helping people, another client that we just wrapped it up, but he, you know, he had a bookkeeper and she stole 80 grand from him that we were able to locate so far. And it's like, you know, so he's out 80 grand, he's hurt, he paid her on top of it. Then he decided, you know what, it just isn't worth it to go after it. And that just crushes dreams, man. That's like, this was this guy's company. And
Yeah.
and these older folks, like,
I was say
it's
they're getting ready for retirement, right? So they're expecting that to be able to live off of, and that kind of just, I mean, that completely alters everything, right?
everything. And so, you know, though that's why I'm so passionate about it, because I watch these business owners go through this. And you know, cash is king, and these people are going out of business because of someone else's actions when it is preventable. We can minimize, we can't eliminate risk, but we
Mhm.
can minimize the risk that something like this will happen very easily through implementing a simple system that
Yep.
is user friendly, but yet can be as detailed and rigorous as you want it to be. That's the beauty of it. It can be as simple or as complicated as you feel like you need to make it for that client. And I
Yep.
would always err on the side of caution to put more of the preventative measures and approvals in place more than less.
Yep.
Because the last thing you want to do is make recommendations to people and then stuff still happens.
Yeah.
So let the system do the work the way it's meant to be. And that's the message I would probably leave people with.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think that's a great one. And I think for me, it's again, it's just about providing that insurance, understanding the value of having that visibility, having those controls, and really the value of that peace of mind, that in the event that something like that does happen, you have someone in your corner to support you. And you have, you know, hopefully a system like Corpay One that'll help you, you know, even be more proactive in those instances so you won't sort of be in that situation.
Absolutely. Well, Eric, thanks for joining me today. I always enjoy spending time with you. I've known you, I think I've known you for at least 10 years, maybe 8 or 10 years. It's been a bit.
It's been a while.
It's
It's
been a bit.
a while.
Always
Yep.
looking forward to hanging out with Eric. So everybody, this has been the DM Disruption. So happy to be here with Eric from Corpay One. Please, number one, implement relationship pricing in your practice. It will change your life. And utilize necessary tools and systems like Corpay One to help your clients minimize the risk of fraud, because cash is king, period. So let's help those small business owners get it together and protect themselves from embezzlement and any other types of fraud by just having conversations, learning about what they're doing, and keeping them in line, because somebody's got to do it. Might as well be us. Right,
Absolutely.
Eric?
Yep.
All right. Thanks everybody for listening. Stay tuned for some more examples and some more podcasts that are coming up. Really excited about getting this back into swing, if you know what I mean. All right. Appreciate Eric. We'll be talking soon.
All right, Dawn. Have a good
All
one.
right. You too. Bye-bye.